In this video, I'll be taking you through how to deal with the mental and emotional challenges of moving home, whether that be moving across town or even around the world. But before that, I'm going to give myself a little bit of credibility here. You see, a few weeks before the filming of this video, I literally moved from the UK to the US. Right then, let's get on with this video then, shall we? Wow, that was easy enough. Or was it? Though what you saw was the physical act of moving, there was actually a lot more to it. I'm not just talking about the packing or the planning and so forth. Having to move for whatever reason, whether it's because you have to relocate for work, you're moving in with your spouse like I have, you need to downsize or upscale your home. In fact, just let me know in the comments why you're moving, for example, just so people can relate to it. The point is that if you're moving home, whether that be down the street, across town, to a different city, or even to a different continent, no matter the reason, it's always going to be stressful, and it's also going to be emotionally draining, and it's hard. In fact, having to move home is one of the top 5 stressful things of anything you're going to have to do in your life. But salad cream boy, you suave and sophisticated recounter of information and wisdom, I hear you ask. Yes, I get that all that is stressful, but what can I do to help myself? Well, dear viewer, gather round and allow me to illuminate you. You see, outside of the stresses of just getting it done, it boils down to, but not limited to, these simple things. The first one being the people who you left behind. Now, I don't mind telling you that this isn't the first time that I tried to move to the States. I tried before, but it didn't quite pan out because I didn't necessarily feel ready. I wasn't ready to leave my friends, my family, and the whole moving situation at the time was just a cluster of emotion. I left feeling that there was so much that I just wished I'd have said to people. There were goodbyes which I really didn't get round to, whether because I ran out of time or didn't make the time, and just genuinely just left things a bit unfinished with people. It made me feel that I was going before my time, and I just didn't have that feeling of closure. It would have made things so much easier on myself that if I just let bygones be bygones with certain arguments, let that friend know that the one that has such low self-esteem, that they're doing great and they're so much more than they're allowing themselves to be. It could be the case that I wanted to have one last game of pool and just beat my rival again, one last time, Greg. Or just as simple as having that last one-to-one with the people that you love and the people that you care about. And just to tell them that yes, you're going away, but this isn't the end and that you love them very much. And I know, it might be a bit heartbreaking to listen to stuff like this. And yes, it may not make the heartbreak go away completely and you'll still feel bad, but it'll make things a little bit easier on yourself and you just at least have that feeling of closure. Believe that. And that leads me neatly onto the place that you left behind. So it's never easy to leave everything behind you, and let me tell you, regardless of how you feel about the place that you live in right now before you move, you're going to miss it. To illustrate this, I come from a place called Birmingham, which is a city in England in the UK. Let me tell you, what a dump. Not only joking. Kinda. Probably. Actually, no, there might have been places in Birmingham that you probably would call a dump, but the thing is, even if it was, it's my dump and it was my home. And yes, I might have been mugged and attacked and various other things back in the past, and yeah, that may have happened in my own area and sometimes even in front of my own house. But there are places that you are going to miss, places where you might go for a bit of serenity, or just places that you just really like to go to. And the thing is, when I tried to move from the States the first time, one of the things which I missed the most were the places that I used to go. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad here, but everything just looks different. The buildings, the trucks, the roads, and even the bars. Again, the first time, and to a point now, one of the biggest things that I just longed for was just a nice relaxing pint in a British pub. And don't get me wrong, the US bars here are really not bad, but it's not home. Okay, so if you just clicked on this video, you may not exactly be going across the world, but you may be going across the same city, or you might be moving to a different city in the same country. Regardless of the fact, then the messages I'm going to convey to you are still relevant, and there's always going to be the feeling where it's just never going to be the same. So again, how do you make it easier on yourself? And to that I say, basically, get up, get out, and look around. So before this move, what I did is I got the train into Birmingham city centre, and what I did, I just walked around and just had a good look around at my environment. I didn't even meet up with any friends, I just took a leisurely walk around town. I had one last drink in one of my favourite bars, and I just took it from one place to the next. Then I went to another place and another and another. And from that, I can tell you this. That feeling when you do actually move and you just wish you'd have gone to that favourite place of yours, whether that be a bar or your favourite coffee shop or just a place where you usually just go, like I don't know, a park or something, just to get a bit of peace, quiet, a little bit of serenity. That feeling would be 100 times easier if when you was actually there, you would just get up and go there and just do what I just said. Just go and smell the roses. Okay, I'm not saying that if you do this that you're just going to completely not miss the places or the people or anything, but it's going to help with that feeling of closure that I mentioned before. And it might not feel as bad as if you just took the time when you could just to stop and smell the roses. Now, with that said, the next topic I need to cover is food and drink. But the thing is, I don't think this scene here is quite right, so I'm just going to go to the kitchen. One sec. Okay, right, food and drink. I can't tell you how gutted I was when I found out that in America, HP sauce, or as some people call it, brown sauce, wasn't a thing. Okay, I kind of knew that the sausages and the bacon wasn't exactly going to be the same here, but if I wanted a really good fry up, HP sauce is an absolute must and had to be at the ready at all times. Worry not though, I did actually find some after some searching and some research, but my point is, especially on a bad day, that you're going to need some comfort food, especially if that food reminds you of home or of a simpler time. And this isn't just relevant if you move into a different country either. For example, you might have that mate who used to make that really absolutely legendary curry whenever you had a get together. You might have that family member who makes an absolutely, again, fantastic Sunday roast. Or it might be as something as silly and as simple as just being able to get that one ingredient from a store where you might be able to get it from where you currently live but not from where you're moving to. Like a certain flavour of Ben & Jerry's, for example. I mean, personally, I love a good treacle sponge and custard every single Christmas, just so I can remember my late grandmother. And I wish at the time when I had the chance to just get that recipe for Yorkshire pudding. And I'm not just talking about the, kind of bowl looking thing. I mean, it actually looked like a loaf of bread and it was absolutely amazing. And it may feel a little bit silly even listen to this right now, but I guarantee you it might take a few days, a few weeks, maybe even a few years. You'll long for those recipes that come from your friends and families and you wish that you would have took them with you. The only thing I can tell you is that if there's something that you know that you're going to miss and there's absolutely no way that you're going to be able to get it on a regular basis where you're going, I would have to say do the research of where you're going to before you move, just so you can prepare yourself. Who knows, there might actually be a restaurant who might be really good enough to give you the recipe, or you might actually be able to have it and order it in from somewhere. Honestly, Amazon, it's a beautiful thing. And at the very least, you'll be able to buy the ingredients and be able to replicate it yourself. It might not be exactly the same, but it's better than nothing. And you'll thank me later. Right, with all that being said, let's get back upstairs, shall we? Come on, you Okay, so yeah, that was weird. Okay, so the next one is, are you sure you want to let it go? And I'm not talking about Frozen. So this one might seem a bit counterintuitive, but just bear with me here. So you might be thinking that you just want to pack the essentials, but you may not know exactly what that entails. So you might want to pack the things that you might actually physically need, but you may not be quite sure of what may have sentimental value, or you may not realize what you might actually miss later on. You might want to be practical, but in the long run, and I'm talking from personal experience here, you seriously want to consider what you leave behind. For example, there might be a teddy bear that you really love, or there might be that Lego kit that it took you about 3 or 4 weeks to get together, or you might have that blanket that might remind you of your childhood. But worry not, you may not be able to get those things into your suitcase or into the moving truck, but there are other avenues such as the post office or to go by courier. There are other ways to deliver these type of things. It might just be worth putting in that extra research. You might even feel silly about putting all that extra effort in just to, move a few sentimental things, but once you move into your new place, trust me, you are going to be longing for them. And again, I've said it before, I can tell you this from experience. For example, I actually convinced myself that I didn't want to take my blanket cover that reminded me of my grandmother, but when I actually moved, I really, really miss it more than I ever have before. My point is that you'll want to be as efficient as possible at the time, but in the long run, you're going to miss the things that make it feel like home. Okay, so I do have one last bonus tip, but before that, I just think you should hear this, and I think it's the most important thing of all that is relative to moving. Okay, so if you don't watch Doctor Who, then fine, but I think Matt Smith as the Doctor from Doctor Who during his run, I think he put it best. We're all different people all through our lives, and that's okay. Gotta keep moving, just as long as you remember all the people that you used to be. The message here is that, okay, you're moving on to a different chapter in your life, but you should never ever forget the past. Without it, we don't learn anything and we don't appreciate the things that we do leave behind. Savor what you have when you have it, because it's never going to be the same again, and you don't want to be leaving any regrets behind you. And with that said, here's a bonus tip for you. Okay, so it's all well and good in doing all these things before you leave, in having that feeling of closure, but there is still one thing left, and that is, how do you deal with the stresses and everything when you do actually make the move, regardless of whether you've done all these things or not? And to that I say this, so you might want to do all the obvious things like get a good night's sleep first, have a good meal, because who wants to move on an empty stomach? But the thing that I use to actually calm myself down is something called CBD oil. Now this is something that I already use for my anxiety, but there's certain times where I can take a bit extra in absolutely really critical and really stressful situations, like moving. And honestly, without this, I don't even think I would have got through the situation of moving, and maybe not even move at all. It really helped in calming down my nerves. So if you don't know what CBD oil actually is, I actually have a video just right here that you can click on, and I go through how it helped me over the first month of using it and how it's used for anxiety and stressful situations. Because it's like I always say, at the end of the day, it gets dark